The story of Tupac Shakur has never truly been put to rest. Nearly 3 decades after one of hip-hop's brightest stars was taken by a drive-by shooting on a Las Vegas street, the questions surrounding his death remain as charged and unresolved as ever. But now, with a new Netflix documentary series pulling back the curtain on the relationships, rivalries, and raw tensions of that era, and with Sean Combs sitting in a prison cell awaiting trial on federal charges, those questions are louder than they have been in years. Tupac was shot 4 times in September of 1996. The world watched in disbelief, and for 27 years, no one was formally charged. That changed a year ago when Dwayne Keith Davis, known as Keith D, was indicted. He has publicly claimed he was inside the vehicle from which the fatal shots were fired, though he maintains he was not the shooter himself. His trial is approaching, and already, the name Sean Combs has been raised over 200 times in the proceedings. Members of Tupac's family have taken notice. His brother Mopreme Shakur has spoken openly about his belief that the full truth has never come to light, and he has urged the public to examine every layer of the circumstances surrounding that night. He has been careful not to issue direct accusations, but his words carry the weight of someone who watched his brother die and has spent decades searching for answers. He remembers Tupac's final moments vividly, describing the sense that his brother was desperately trying to communicate something in those last hours. That memory has never left him. It continues to fuel his determination to understand what really happened. The Netflix series examines the complex relationship between Tupac and Sean Combs within the broader context of the East Coast-West Coast rivalry that consumed hip-hop during the mid-1990s. Former Bad Boy executive Kirk Burroughs appears in the documentary and reflects candidly on what he now believes about that period. He describes how Combs, during that time, had him coordinating cars and personnel to travel to Las Vegas, something Burroughs says he did not question at the time, but now views with serious suspicion. In the documentary, he states plainly that he now believes Combs was involved. Music insider Gene Deal, a figure with direct knowledge of the inner workings of that world, also shares his perspective. He describes the atmosphere between the two camps as intensely competitive and deeply personal, driven by ego, money, and the kind of pressure that builds when 2 powerful personalities are on a collision course. He recalls an evening with Combs and others near the House of Blues in Los Angeles, a moment that illustrated just how strange and layered the dynamic between these figures really was. What looked from the outside like a straightforward coast-to-coast feud was, in reality, something far more complicated and tangled. One of the most compelling threads running through the documentary involves the 1994 Quad Studios shooting, where Tupac was ambushed and robbed before one of the most important nights of his career. Tupac himself publicly pointed toward Combs and others in that circle, but the incident was never conclusively solved. Years later, in 2011, a man named Dexter Isaac came forward claiming he carried out the attack under the direction of James Roseman, known as Jimmy Henchman, a powerful figure who was reportedly in the building at the time. Henchman has denied any role in the incident. Combs has also denied any connection to it. And yet the shooting remains one of the most debated moments in hip-hop history, a turning point that hardened alliances, deepened suspicions, and set events in motion that many believe led directly to Tupac's death 2 years later. William Lucene, Tupac's cousin, speaks throughout the series about the growing tension between the 2 artists. He describes Tupac's rise and fierce independence as something that created mounting friction, particularly as Tupac's influence expanded and his willingness to operate outside the traditional industry structure became more pronounced. Lucene stops short of placing direct blame, but his account paints a picture of an environment where ambition and rivalry could push people toward decisions they might not otherwise make. Gene Deal has also spoken about his belief that Biggie Smalls, had certain choices been made differently, might have survived that era. He reflects on how much of what happened was driven not by genuine coast-to-coast hatred, but by the decisions of a small number of powerful people who, in his view, used that cultural tension for their own purposes. He recalls moments where he tried to warn those around him that situations were becoming dangerous, and he carries the weight of feeling that those warnings went unheeded. The story of the money allegedly paid after Tupac's death is among the most striking details to emerge from the documentary. The claim, which has circulated for years and is now being addressed more openly, is that following the shooting, money was sent through an intermediary named Zip Martin, who was supposed to pass it along to Keefe D. According to multiple sources, including statements the FBI reportedly made to Keefe D himself, Zip kept the money. Several figures in the documentary note the dark irony in that. Had the payment been completed, it would have created a direct and traceable link to a murder for hire. The fact that it never reached its destination may be the only reason certain individuals have not already been prosecuted. Detective Greg Kading, who investigated both the Tupac and Biggie murders and conducted the proffer agreement with Keefe D in 2008, appears in the documentary as well. He confirms that the type of vehicle Keefe D described Zip Martin driving to Las Vegas that night matches what was later verified. It is a detail that seems small in isolation, but within the larger timeline the documentary constructs, it carries real weight. Tupac Shakur, reflecting on all of it, does not speak with the detachment of someone recounting old history. He speaks as a brother. He has said he holds his own beliefs about what happened, that he has information he could share to support those beliefs, but that he has chosen not to lay it out publicly. He has described it as something between him and the people involved. What he will say is that every time Combs publicly denies any connection, it only deepens the suspicion and prolongs the pain for a family that has never been able to fully grieve or fully move on. The broader portrait that emerges from the series is of an industry during one of its most volatile periods, where power, money, and ego created conditions in which tragedy became almost inevitable. The East Coast, West Coast narrative that most people remember was real in some ways, but it also obscured what was happening at a more personal and transactional level between specific individuals. The documentary does not claim to deliver a final verdict. What it does is lay out the evidence, the testimony, the timelines, and the contradictions, and let viewers draw their own conclusions. With Keefe D's trial on the horizon and Sean Combs's name continuing to surface throughout the legal proceedings, this story is not over. For Tupac's family, for the people who lived through that era, and for the millions who have grown up in the decades since asking who killed Tupac Shakur, the answers may finally be closer than they have ever been. If this story means something to you, share it. And if you want to stay close to how this unfolds as the trial approaches, subscribe. This is one of those cases worth following all the way to the end.